What's good, everyone? Welcome back to My First Kicks. This is episode 142, and this week I welcome Sean Williams to the podcast. He is one half of Social Studies, which is ran with him and former guest D Wells. Man, it was a huge honor having him on. We talk about, the the beginnings of social studies, the beginnings of OSD, their podcasts that they used to do, and just a lot of history is being spread. I learned a lot during this episode, and you get to see that. And it's just really cool to see what they grew out of just two ideas. And Dee and Sean complement each other extremely well. And they've built something really cool that helps everyone. I mean, literally everyone who is interested in sneakers find their lane within sneakers and just make a career out of it. And I find that extremely influential and extremely cool. And they're just here to help. And I think that is a valuable, just key tool that a lot of people aren't really trying to pass out around. Uh, just simply trying, not in terms of just gatekeeping how to make it in the sneaker industry, but, or just working within sneakers and a sort of parameter that revolves around you and your strengths and how you can take that to the next level within sneakers. But it's really cool that these guys are able, both Sean and D are able to be able to help anyone who has just a huge passion for sneakers. So having Sean on, we talked a lot about just what got him into sneakers, what progressed over time, and then we connect a little bit over comics in this as well. I have to say, apologies in advance for the audio. I feel like while editing it, I felt like it was just a little bit not like up to par or choppy. In my case, you get a little bit of the my audio coming through his stuff, and I don't know if I sounded pretty clear, but this was recorded before I went on vacation to Vegas, and I just wanted to call that out. So if you aren't aware, I did go on vacation, and if you aren't following me on the social medias, but I checked out Urban Necessities in Vegas, and also another sneaker shop that I didn't catch the name. And man, those prices in there are bananas. And I thought Vegas was expensive off the bat, but they tax you at Urban Necessities. And no shade, I'm not a big reseller guy anyway, so seeing sneakers that I have in my closet just going for like triple, I want to say, how much it was, like how triple the times that I've seen in just like regular like New York City resale shops. I was just like, this is wild. So just wanted to say that I don't think it made me not want to buy resale even more. And it's funny because my nearest resale shop just shut down. I've never seen any. I've talked about it. You'll probably hear it in the next episode. You'll probably hear or have heard me talk about the sneaker store, the sneaker resale shop by me, and I don't know how it made money. And now my answers are my questions were answered because it did not make money, and they're closed now. So let me just say, it's wild that I predicted that really early, because there was no way that store was going to stay as open as long as it did, and it opened in 2020. So shout out to them for making it to almost 3 years, or maybe they did make it to 3 years. I don't know if it was late 2020 or 2021, but shout out to them for making it that long, because nobody was buying their sneakers. But on to where you can find Sean. You can find him on all social medias as OSD_paper chaser. You can chaser without an E. And also, please, if you're really interested into sneakers and want to work within sneakers, using your expertise, you can be, brand new out of college, or working, a corporate job for the past like 10 years. Please check out Social Studies at socialstudies.com. They currently have openings for their October 21st uh, Saturday classes, I want to say. There's a limited space. It's only a 4-week course. It's only going to happen November 2nd, the 9th, 16th, and 30th. It's in person, virtual, and hybrid. The social studies will help you learn about the sneaker history, will help you learn about the history of sneakers, and the culture and business and sports and technological from a cultural business, sports, and technological perspective. My bad, but it's very cool. You get to learn the ins and outs of what you can do and try to apply your current skills into an industry that you have more passion for, because you can be, selling ads for a pharma company, but then you can just translate that into, sneakers. And this course will give you the chance. I If you're thinking about a career change, I implore you to check this class out. I will leave all the descriptions and links that you will need in the description of this podcast. So please be sure to check that out. And, if you have any questions, hit up Sean. If you add him on LinkedIn, he's very responsive. He's always posting. If you're in the Facebook group or want to find a Facebook group, it's Obsessive Sneaker Disorder on Facebook. Hit it up. He's always posting. He's always there. And we'll answer your questions. If you're unsure about signing up, or if you're just steadfast and want to just sign up, you can hit me up. I'll give you as much information I know about the course. It's really cool. There's a physical location now. We talk about that in this episode. So give it a shot if you really are into sneakers. And you know where to find me. I am Who Is Haas on all social medias. Follow the podcast on My First Kicks Pod. Follow the podcast on TikTok and YouTube. If you're watching this right now, shout out to you. If you're watching this, hit a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to your boy. And please, 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 if you have a chance, rate and review this podcast. It will help me tremendously. Share this with your friends. My First Kicks will be doing a live show at the end of this month. Well, towards the end of this month. So if you're in the New York area and are interested in coming, hit me up. I will, well, I'm announcing it now, but yeah, I will I'm trying to do my best to bring a really good, great, amazing previous guest that's been on the podcast. So it's going to be a great show. I know it's a lot of information in this intro. I hope you all listen to it. And I hope you are interested in both the school and also the live show. Shout out to y'all. And on to this week's guest, Sean Williams. Hey, Sean, welcome to the podcast.
What is going on, my brother? Thank you for having me.
Nah, man, it's a big honor. I had D on, and then D recommended you. And of course, OISD. It's did I say it right? Or is it obsessive?
OSD.
OSD.
That's sneaker disorder.
Yeah, obsessive sneaker disorder. I had it right when I had D on. I had it right, and now I messed it up in front of you.
Do you see my wavelength? Because I'm flat on my side.
Yeah, you good.
Okay, cool.
But I had D on, recommended you, and of course I had to have you on. I mean, after you commented on the episode, I was like, gotta have Sean on next, and now we here.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me here, man. D and I have been on a tear putting some things together for ourselves over the last almost a year now. Actually, September's here. So we set out kind of on a mission last year, November, to resume something we started. So, just to give you the timeline of everything, D and I have been partners in OSD since the first sneaker podcast we started in 07. We sort of ushered in and created this whole wave of podcasts that now exists. And, we've been friends for, a couple of years prior to that due to some mutual friends telling us that we should meet and then we finally met
Hmm.
at the old Flight Club on Green Street
Oh wow.
before it moved three other times.
Hmm.
And shout out to Chris Vidal, one of the OGs from Flight Club there.
Shout out to Chris. I want to have him on, but he's a. I feel like that's gonna be like the craziest episode.
It will be a crazy one, but it'll be a good one
Yeah.
because he has a lot of gems too.
Hmm.
But we all finally met through a meeting at Flight Club, and then slowly but surely, due to all the connections we had, we got together. He told me to come in and help him on creating this podcast called Obsessive Sneaker Disorder, and I did. And here we are. We just celebrated OSD, the company, just celebrated our anniversary on August 27th of 16 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's amazing. Like the fact that sneakers can bring you guys and keep you guys together for this long. You know,
Yeah,
I love it. Like uh, the way that sneakers are now, it's like it's so hard to create the conversation. So you have to like manifest and force it now.
yeah,
So it's like now, I mean, with this, my goal with this is always to just create a conversation because we've have too many people that create content or are into sneakers and they just only talk about the new stuff. They only the new stuff, the new stuff, the new stuff. They don't pay
yeah.
homage to anything before, and only when the brands tell us to pay homage, that's when we pay homage.
And the
You know?
brands don't tell anyone to ever pay homage. So it's really a constant dog chasing his tail to get free sneakers and invited to all the cool parties, which is why, like 7 years later, we went from '07 to 2014 with the podcast,
Hmm.
and that space got so crowded that we just decided to kind of leave that alone and do what we always do, which is
Hmm.
open new doors and elevate for the business and for the culture. So by 2014, we had already done and kicked in the door on an audio podcast. And then I think around 2010, Google reached out to us for us to join their Hangouts platform when it was a
Hmm.
video platform with like multimedia features and stuff like that. So it was great for podcasting. But then they just kept messing around and tinker with things, Google being Google, and it started disrupting the flow of the podcast. So we
Hmm.
stopped the podcast in 2014 on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We still come back when we get requests to do special episodes, but we like consistently as like every Wednesday night 9:30 to 11 type thing.
Hmm.
We stopped that in 2014
Yeah.
because too much going on. So, but in that journey, us being the folks that we were and having the content that we had,
Hmm.
people were listening to our show at the brands and figure out how to do their jobs. The Nikes, Adidas, Under Armour,
Hmm.
Reeboks, everybody, they had people locked in Wednesday nights listening to us or catching the audio downloads later. Because if we were in this current time
Hmm.
with the numbers we had between 2007 and 2010, we'd be millionaires
Yeah.
because
That's
we were averaging 10,000 audio downloads
jeez.
a week,
That's wild. Yeah.
right? Not at the end of the month. Oh, good numbers for 10. We were doing 10K audio downloads a week
Hmm.
before there was a compensation metrics and ad sales revenue and people putting all of this in to make it more of a business. But we got our just do other ways. We ended up consulting, working, with the brands as consultants, which led to us creating social studies because we started seeing there was a need on both sides
Hmm.
of people out in the street and in the hoods and the folks in the sneaker community that were part of culture wanting to work in the industry and not
Yeah.
knowing how. And then we saw on the other side the brands didn't even know how to reach those people.
Hmm.
So that's where social studies came in. We became that cultural bridge to the opportunity on both sides. And it was all non-design based because there were tons of people, even including folks we work with like Pensol,
Hmm.
they're already doing design. That's their lane, they can have it.
Yeah.
But what about all the other jobs that kick in after the design is done?
Hmm.
Nobody was teaching that, and we decided to teach that. And we consistently, for our 12th year now, have been doing that. So, you fast forward to from '09 with consulting, you fast forward to 2011, we started social studies. And even now, we launched 2 months ago, we launched the Social Studies Community Academy here in Dumbo, Brooklyn, where I'm sitting right now.
I know. I
So
want to visit.
your door is always open to you. We are the first sneaker culture and business academy ever anywhere. That's what we're specializing in. We also have content creation space for
Mhm.
folks who want to create podcasts, audio and video. We also have, a featured art wall, and we have what I'm calling the Library of Laces, the Bobito Garcia Library of Laces, named
Mhm.
after our friend Cool Bob Love, who without him there would be no sneaker
There
culture.
wouldn't be. Nope.
And he also kicked in the door on what is now sneaker media because he was the first one to write about the professor level sneakers
Hmm.
in the source in May 1991 with Confessions of a Sneaker Addict.
Hmm.
So our Library of Laces is named after him. Good friend, good supporter. Um, and our library is also Web3 tech enabled.
Wow.
So we have every book in our sneaker book library with an NFC chip on the book, where when you borrow it, you're issued an NFT, and
Hmm.
those NFTs and the books related to them are managed in the blockchain. So, to my knowledge, we're the only ones managing a library of books in that way
I mean,
so far.
that sounds way ahead. It's super advanced.
And the goal was with that was to make sure that just like cell phones were scary 20 years ago,
Hmm.
Web3 is scary now. But through implementation using things that people engage with every day, like art, sneakers, and books, it's not so scary anymore because now they slowly get immersed into what they can do with the technology.
Yeah.
And like, look at now, somebody loses their cell phone, their world comes to a stop. They
Hmm.
literally, there's people who get panic attacks when they lose their phone. But 20 years ago, nobody wanted one. They were like, I don't trust this.
And then I mean, I even think about 20 years ago because it seems so close, to be honest, like, but like just be able to go outside and then be like, no, you got to come home when the lights is on. That's the only parameter, you know.
Right, right. That's the era that I grew up in. Was no cell phones,
Hmm.
serial killers on the streets,
Hmm.
cars with ashtrays in them, and no seatbelts in the back.
Or the one seatbelt like just on the front, just on the
You
front,
know,
and then
Two
there's no
seatbelts.
in between.
Yep. So you know what I'm saying. So like, one of the things I like to say now is kids these days they have pressure with very little danger,
Hmm.
and we had danger with no pressure
Yeah.
when we grew up. That's the difference now. I mean, you know, the young generation and folks who are coming up behind us, Gen Zs and everybody else, they're under a lot of stress
Hmm.
socially. Like, it's so much, for another episode and for a social studies lesson, I'm sure, I guess. But
I'll be there in the classroom with that one.
but we have so much danger that we were totally oblivious to because, like you just said, the
Mhm.
only criteria was make it home by the time streetlights are on.
Yeah.
Our parents couldn't call us. Our parents couldn't come look for us. They didn't know where the hell we were,
Hmm.
right? So, and this is the early infancy days of hip hop. So you're talking about us running around the different blocks and different neighborhoods, b-boy battles, or in my case, I was a graffiti artist, so I was
Hmm.
all over this damn New York City. Let me tell you, all over, writing on things, spray
What
painting on
what would
things.
would you write?
So it's hard to see behind me right now, but I in my art I've gone back to my graffiti name, which was Opus One.
Opus One. Nice.
So man, that's name of a very expensive champagne.
And
Um,
also the name of a jazz song that I absolutely hate. So
now I'm gonna go and listen to it.
it's the if you've ever been on hold, you'll be like, oh, this is the song that's on hold. Like you're on hold.
Oh, okay. I gotta
Yeah.
go check that out. Look at that. I learned something new today myself. I like that. So, for us, sneakers have been a part of my life and Dee's young life too. We're similar in age. For me, it's been 38 years with shoes now, as a sneaker lover and wearer of them,
Yeah.
and someone who's into all the shoes and all the stories. You know, and like now with opening the academy, we have our own space to really cultivate good experiences, create good content, and constantly still serve people through education and empowerment. And that doesn't even matter the age, because our oldest student for social studies has been 62 years old.
Hmm.
So, we really have like run a full gamut of people that we've rocked with and had great experiences with educating, helping people get into the industry,
Yeah.
helping them transition to the industry from other industries, like all of
Mhm.
those things we've done. So it's about more than just the shoes for us. We have favorites, we have stories personally connecting us to shoes, of
Yeah.
course, or we wouldn't be here this long. But for us, it's really about, using sneakers as agents for change.
I mean, like that was what it was for me too, like when I first started collecting. So like hearing that is also super refreshing because you're always hearing like, how do I make money off of this? I feel like after, reselling took over, everybody used sneakers as a way to just resell and make money, when before it was a form of communication. Like you'd be
Mhm.
like, oh, I can talk to this person, they're rocking this, oh, I could like I can use this way to talk to somebody. Or it can be like, oh, tell me the story behind why you need these, or tell me the story behind this and that. And now it's always just like, yeah, these are a grail, they're so rare, that I need to have them. And then you're just like, that's not it.
And we got to the point where it's not even that anymore. It's like there's 4 million pairs of black and white Panda Dunks out on the street, but if you look on the resale platforms, you would think there's just like 500 the way they want to charge for them.
Yeah, it's nuts the way
So
it is.
I mean, the evolution of sneaker culture and the infiltration of capitalism has happened to other cultures. It's happened in cars and
Hmm.
all the other different
Art.
cultures. Yeah, art. Well, it's been there in art from day one.
Hmm.
Which that's a totally different conversation regarding like perceived value of art and all of that stuff. But I mean, to tie it back in, you're right. Sneakers are wearable art. So anyone that really treats them like wearable art, as in, I need to own these, but I'm never going to wear them because they're just so dope. They're so cool. I can't wear these. Like, they're going to treat them like an art piece and never wear them. But we wear as much as possible. If
Yeah.
I have shoes I'm not going to wear, I'm going to donate them,
Mhm.
which, or I have shoes that I've worn and I absolutely hate and donate those too. So it's all in how you choose to make these shoes a part of your lives. We make a living off of shoes without having to sell them. We
Mhm.
make a living off of shoes by leveraging their possibilities and them being a bridge to the actual industry themselves
Yeah.
and to educate people on those opportunities. That's what we use the shoes for. So it's a little different for us in that we're not scooping up shoes because we saw how much they could go for on StockX and Go. That's
Mhm.
never an option for us.
I know and I mean, you know, in sneaker culture, obviously we have buy sell trade. Like in order to get to the pair that you really want to get to, you take the pairs that you're able to get and then get to that point. I mean,
Mm,
that's how I was taught, and I think like that's a core value behind it. But like because you want to get to the pair that you wanted, that you really want to wear, and but that just got ballooned into, oh, I can just take that pair and sell whatever for how whatever and make that money and then use that money for something else. But if ideally you wanted that shoe from the jump, then you wouldn't sell it. And I think that's what I have a problem with. Like all my pairs that I wear, every single one of mine, I probably have maybe like two pairs I haven't worn yet, and it's more because of just like I'm just waiting for that moment of like this is the moment, like it hits me and I'll be like, all right, today's the day. um but it's definitely just like it loses its luster when it becomes just only about buying and selling, you
right,
know. I
right. When they're just purely commoditized and they're not seen as the wearable art that they could be in some instances,
Mhm.
or just a dope ass shoe you want to wear
Yeah.
because you saw it, you liked it, and you can put together a nice fit with it or something. Those days are gone. Like, I have a phrase that I say I've been saying since the beginning with social studies.
Hmm.
And it's this. It's kids pay more to look the same now than we ever paid to look different.
Yeah, that's 1000% facts. I believe the same thing too, because it's so wild how this culture was ingrained in wanting to look different and be different and stand out, and now we're in this era where it's everybody wants to look the same, everybody wants to, but they want to look the same and definitely spend the most money and tell people
Mhm.
that they've spent the most money, and
To
that's
look
where,
the same.
yeah, to look the same. It's
Yeah. I realized, my son just graduated college a couple months ago.
Mhm.
Um, but I realized when I was teaching social studies at his high school, and going to school when the day started, or either at lunchtime. Those are the two times that I would get there and see a shoe that I know released that past Saturday,
yeah.
and I show up on a Monday and everybody's got it on. I mean, there's 30, 40, 50 pairs of the same shoe running around the school, and everyone's totally okay with that. Where us in high school, that would nauseate. That would send us home.
Yeah, that is absolute fact. I'll tell you this one story, and then after that we'll jump into it. But like there's one time I have a pair of Melvin SBs because I grew up on, like, once I finally got my own money, it was the SB era, so I jumped straight into SBs. So
Right.
I got a pair of Melvin SBs, and my best friend, he also got a pair of Melvin SBs, and we were like, "Yo, we're gonna meet up, right? We're gonna meet up," and then we didn't tell each other what we were gonna wear, and I pull up and we both were wearing the Melvins at the same time, and I looked
Oh,
down. I looked down and we were both like, "Yo, this is weird." And we cut the day in half after that. We were like, "No, we had all this stuff we were gonna do," and we were like, "Nah, man, we're not doing this. Like, it's so weird. Like, we're getting out of here."
yeah. Like you still have the old hip hop spirit because the rules that govern sneaker culture are hip hop culture rules because sneaker
Mhm.
culture comes from hip hop culture.
Right.
So anything that resembles, those rules to me are what I can rock with. I'm
Mhm.
good with. You know, I can't. I would totally not be comfortable with me and you walking around all day in the same shoes.
Mm-mm. I'll be like, "Man,
And
my mom's calling me. I gotta go, man. There's an emergency in the house."
we're going sneaker shopping right at that point. I'll be like, okay, which one of us is copping a fresh pair to wear out the store today, right now? We ain't got to call it a day, but if one of us got bread, like we're literally right now, we're going, and somebody's copping a fresh pair right now.
Like, "Yo, when'd you get paid? When'd you get
Even
paid,
if
bro?"
it's just for the day, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's
And
wild.
that was what we lived by. We had to be original and different, even from our closest friends.
Mhm.
Originality ruled the day. Individuality ruled the day. You just couldn't. It was not acceptable, you know?
Yeah.
But I get it. Different day and time, millions of pairs being released, easy for people to get them because that's who they're marketed and pushed towards.
Mhm.
Things are just geared that way by the brands themselves. They want that because it represents more money for them. So I get it, but yeah, I'm not with it.
Nah, yeah, yeah. But you're here to answer the question. It's hard pivot right into it. You're here to answer the question that I ask everybody each week, and that question is, "What's your first kicks? What's that first pair of sneakers you absolutely needed to have?"
There's two answers to that.
Hmm.
So my mom, may she rest in peace, I made a deal with her, which is how I was able to amass so many pairs of sneakers at a young age. When the average kid would only average 2 or 3 pairs a year, a school pair, a after school play pair,
Hmm.
and that was it. I was able to get 5 and 6 and 7 pairs of shoes a year because I made a deal with my mom that every marking period, if my grades were good, she would have to get me any pair that I wanted. But that
Okay.
started with my first, sneaker that, I consciously at 13 had to have,
Hmm.
which was a pair of Puma baskets.
Mm.
So we're talking very early 80s. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So from there, the deal was on. I was getting my 2 pair a year as allocated, just like every other kid, if you will.
Hmm.
But then my grades would come in every marking period. We have 4 marking periods a year. So I got 4 more pairs of shoes.
Wow.
So now, on top of getting 4 more pairs of shoes, not only do I start working at 14 years old and making my own money,
Hmm.
I'm buying my own shoes on top of the deal that she still has to live up to.
Man, you were killing it back then, man.
So I'm starting really to like There's my friends are having 2 and 3 pairs a year, and I'm doing 20 and 25.
Yeah. It's so crazy at that time. It's so wild.
But here's the thing, right? Like, D and I, between the two of us, we're easily over 10,000 pair over this 30 plus years.
Hmm.
But back in those days, you didn't keep them.
Mm.
There was no reason to keep them. You wore, you beat, you got rid of them,
Hmm.
right? Because it wasn't a thing to keep them all for any reason.
Right.
They were literally like, if a shoe was beat up, there was no justification to keep it.
Mm-mm.
And you beat your shoes up because there was no other option. Once you owned them, you owned them. That was it. There was no wear it once. I don't really like it, so I'm gonna put it on StockX and eBay. We didn't
Right.
have that. Matter of fact, that was one of the unwritten rules of us growing up. Do not wear somebody else's shoes.
Yeah.
You don't. There was no resale market for us because that was like totally non-cipher for us to ever even consider wearing a shoe we knew somebody else owned.
Hmm.
That's an entire multi-billion-dollar business now.
It's crazy because like even when I remember that was the same idea I had also too. Like my mom was always telling me like, no, you don't buy used shoes, and I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, it was like you have to buy new shoes. It's always new shoes. Yeah.
yeah, always a new shoe. Like if your next door neighbor came by and like, hey, I got these Pumas, didn't really fit me well, didn't like them. $25, they're yours. We'd be like, man, if you don't get out of here with your shoes that you wore, and don't ever talk to me again. Now that you offered me that, you weirdo, get out of here.
Better move.
So just growing up, like I said, there were certain rules and things in place that kids today, now all of these things are acceptable. Life
Mhm.
is different. So all these things like reselling shoes after wearing and buying a shoe just to stun on the gram and then sell it and all of this other stuff, that totally was not in our existence. You literally had to have your own. It had to be fresh. It had to be yours until you couldn't wear it anymore.
Mhm.
Sneaker donations. Nobody did anything like that.
Yeah.
Now we see all these charities where you can donate lightly used, and none of that was around.
It was
So
just
you bought a
one and
shoe.
done.
So you bought a shoe. It was yours. That
Yeah.
was it. So for me, the Puma basket was that first shoe that I remember consciously asking my mom for, and I got for my birthday. Um, and I was able to kind of stunt with it because we had a mild winter to some degree that year.
Mhm.
And then the second part of that answer is the first shoe that I bought with my own money, which is a Nike Air Max 1 from '87. So that was the first shoe I paid for with my own money from working my summer job in Manhattan,
Mhm.
in the Union Square area of Manhattan. And I went through a lot to get it because I bought it from a store named Paragon Sports, which still exists today.
Yeah, I've been in there twice, and I bought one jacket out of there.
And Paragon is a very racist
Oh,
establishment at
that's what
that
I've
time.
I've heard. I've heard even like until when I went there, it was pretty like, oh yeah, you don't go there if you're if you're not white, and I was like, oh okay,
It's very ski and tennis and
yeah,
golf kind of oriented, and so those are things that up until modern times primarily white people engaged in, and that was it.
hmm,
So like technical runners and stuff, we didn't do any of that. At least the stereotype was black people didn't do any of that back then. So you're talking '87. So when I went in to get the shoes, they wouldn't even let me touch them or try them on.
hmm,
Like the guy stalled me and stalled me. I had to pull the money out my pocket and show him that I had the money for the shoes. Still wouldn't let me touch them. And in that store, the registers were upstairs and the shoes were downstairs.
hmm,
So he's like, I sent them upstairs for you already. If you want them, you're gonna have to go upstairs and pay for them. I was like, but I don't get to try them on. He was like, nah, I can't let you do that. So even with the money in my hand, this jerk, because me being the skin color I was, didn't want me to touch the shoes. But he was like, if I gotta sell them, I'll sell them. I guess because he gets commission.
yeah,
Otherwise, I don't think he would have sold them to me at all. But
right,
got the shoes, got out of the store. I know they didn't match what I had on that day. I did not have on white, gray, and red. But I put those on and got back to my neighborhood in Flatbush, Brooklyn. And even to this day, 30 plus years later, nobody has ever reacted to a sneaker I've worn the way they reacted to that shoe.
how did they react? How did they react?
Cars stopping in the street, I stopped pickup basketball games. People were asking me what happens if they get a flat because the air bubble was there and visible. You know what I mean? Like it was some great reactions. I'm 51 years old now, and I still remember those actions from a shoe that I bought when I was 15.
Man, I mean, that is absolutely nuts. Like, I don't know. Like, that's like, for me, in my head, I'm like, yo, I peaked that moment. There's nothing I can beat after that. I would be chasing that high for the rest of my life.
I mean, from a reaction perspective, I've never, wanted to have that reaction ever again. It was a signifier for me that I was always going to have fresh kicks as part of me being who I am. Like, even if I was on the fence at that point, or I've reached a point where, you reach a certain stage in your 20s or whatever, where you don't care anymore. I never reached that point when it came to shoes because of that moment.
Yeah. It's wild. But first, let me read a little description of the sneaker to the listeners here. This is going to be the OG Big Bubble 86. Just like I'm just reading that, just for context, for everybody. But I'm skipping most of it. Like the original, this retro release features an upper built with a blend of breathable white mesh, gray synthetic suede overlays, and contrasting hits of university red on the mudguard and signature swoosh. Additional crimson accents land on molded eyelets and Nike Air branding on the tongue and heel overlay, restored to its original dimensions, and exposed air sole unit nestled in the heel of the white polyurethane midsole delivers a cushioned ride. And that stopped cars.
Well, here's a funny thing, right? So the Big Bubble 86 version, I never owned that. I owned the 87 version when they retooled the midsole because the 86 version, the midsole was breaking.
Mm,
So I never owned an 86 version. I owned an 87 pair
I
because
got
of
you.
that.
Okay. Let me
So the
read
Big Bubble comes from 86.
86. Yeah.
When the first run of them, the feedback was this midsole is breaking
Hmm.
because it couldn't handle the size of the bubble and the way the midsole was constructed.
Yeah.
So, but the mesh and everything other than that is primarily the same.
No, yeah. I should have read the 2017 re-release, which
No,
was
it's fine because you put context to the fact that the shoe has two beginning
yeah.
histories. You know what I'm saying? And like there's some people who are the 87 cats with it, and there were a few who were able to snag pairs of the 86. I was never one of those. I didn't want the 86 after I heard what was happening. But the 87 pairs, that was Beatles commercial and all of that. For me, I just had to have them, you
No,
know?
yeah. The 87, that 87 pair is like the model that they just put every Air Max 1 2
Right.
now, right?
Right. Yeah. The 87 version is the one that's like the general, you know, model silhouette for collaborations and everything that have gone on over the years.
Mhm.
But I
I
have heard that they're going to be trying to do a few collaborations on the 86 version, but I don't care. Either way, I don't want that shit. They can keep that.
I've only had two pairs of Air Max ones. I got the Clot Air Max ones on the Air Max Day a couple years ago, and then I had a pair of
Never.
Giants colorway Air Max ones. It's
Mm.
horrible to talk about the Giants right now, but
Yeah.
the those that was a really comfortable pair. It was my first Air Max, and I was like, oh, these are nice. But it I didn't know that there was such a huge community around just the Air Max
Hmm.
itself.
Yeah.
And
On the line itself and
yeah,
the entire Air Max line itself. Yeah.
and I didn't learn about it until like way later, and then seeing an Air Max Day happen, and
Hmm.
people who like it made me understand like when a community is big into one specific model, they will make sneakers to go with the people that are like shelling out for the Air Maxes, for per se,
Yeah.
and it made me appreciate more of just like releases that cater to stuff, and or even just like communities that just band together to make something like Air Max Day happen, you know.
Yeah.
So the I don't know, did that spawn just like you just buying a ton of Air Maxes after that, or was it?
No, because there weren't a ton of Air Maxes.
Mhm.
We had the white and red, which was for men, and the white and blue, which was for ladies, which was back then. The color scheme itself of those running shoes was revolutionary because running shoes were not colored like that at all back then.
Mhm.
But the blue pair were originally for women, and the red pair were for men. These days, of course, that doesn't matter, but back then, those were the specifics. The blue pair was for women, and the red pair were for men. To totally revolutionize and like the shock and awe of, okay, you're a woman wearing this white, blue, and gray running shoe, and you're a man wearing this white, red, and gray running shoe, when running shoes of the day were not even close to those colors.
Yeah. It's I mean, I wasn't born yet, but I was I was
You
a year
told,
after. I was a
you
year after.
told, you heard.
Yeah, I was told. um, so I mean, that was only one pair out of the four you were getting that quarter. So
Yeah,
like,
we had tons of brands. So,
yeah,
to answer your question, those were my two.
yeah, yeah,
First, the Puma Basket, and then the Air Max One from '87. And like after that, it was just like whatever was dope and was out and I wanted, I got. I worked for it. I made sure I was a good ass student to make sure that I had my extra four pairs a year not being paid for by me. And then I had up until I got my job.
What was the first job?
So that job was working with my father in Manhattan, cleaning up parking lots in Manhattan. His company had 5 parking lots in Manhattan. And it was my job every summer to come with him and clean them up. Like we're talking about, a couple of them were football field size,
Jeez.
and it was my job to clean them up, keep them clean. The days of outdoor lots are long gone now for the most part, mostly. But like back then in Manhattan, there were a lot of outdoor lots where debris would just fly all over from everywhere. People throw shit out their cars, all of that. So the work was steady.
There's always something to do.
Yeah, it was always the work those summers. I looked forward to those summers making that money until when I got to high school. When I got to high school, I became a foot messenger. And
Oh,
even then, now you're always walking around. So now, again, more kicks.
I-
So I've always been working since 14 years old to now, always. And that's where the money has always come from to constantly buy and buy and buy shoes and gear.
mhm. And that was just like the main purpose with it. Like you were just like, I'm gonna spend this money on sneakers, and
Well, that was all I needed to spend it on until I got my own place. And then it, kind of trickled off a little bit to a moderate pace.
mhm,
But I don't think I've ever had a year where I've bought less than 40 or 50 pairs of sneakers.
damn.
I've never had a year where I've bought less than that.
Mhm. So like, you know, you're yeah, you're a part of the beginning of sneaker culture in New York City, but like, what was we know what sparked it off, but like, what were you doing during that time where like were you being able to jump into it with like legendary people like Bobito and
There
you
was
know
no sneaker culture like that back then. There wasn't. We were all in our respective spaces doing our thing. I was a graffiti artist. Bob, similar in age to me, slightly older, was probably playing basketball. You know, he ultimately ended up in the music industry. He tells the story well in terms of, well documented in terms of his beginnings in music and stuff.
hmm
But we've never crossed paths until, maybe 20 years ago.
hmm
And it's like that with a lot of people that once things changed to the point where being into shoes became more social after, I hate to say it this way, but after the turn of the century. It makes it sound so old, doesn't it?
yeah.
It makes it sound really fucking old. But, like after the 2000s, when it became quote unquote sneaker culture, if you will, that's when it was a more social nature to all of this. And we all started mingling and going to events and seeing each other. And, all of those things related to what the early 2000s were for being in the shoes, we were all starting to get together.
No, yeah. I mean, I had Dante Ross on the podcast, and he talked about going up to the Bronx to get uptowns, and
Mhm.
and
To go to Jew Man's.
man. I thought I was gonna say the name wrong, so I just went the Bronx.
Mhm.
But I mean, the iconic, you know, were you able to partake in like the rise of uptowns and the like how they are, you know, glorified today?
I wouldn't say take part in the rise of uptowns because they were just another shoe to us. Because you got to remember, in the '80s, early '80s, Nike wasn't a big deal. You know, the brands that ruled the day were Pro Kids, Adidas, Puma, Pony. You know, then you had other brands come in other sports. Like, you know, when it came to tennis, we were wearing shoes like Prince,
Mhm.
from Prince, the racket makers. They had shoes, you know, and LS, the Italian brands, Lotto, you know, even Bally of Switzerland. Like, we had different models and styles of shoes. Sergio Tacchini had the sweatsuits and the shoes, and Fila had sweatshirts and sweatsuits and shoes. And there was such a diversification of what you rock just to be fresh. Nike was not at all big like that
Mhm.
at all. And like even now, like, you know, you see Nike putting money behind celebrating 50 years of hip hop. They weren't there in the beginning.
No,
Maybe
yeah.
one shoe from Nike was there in the beginning, and that was the Cortez,
Mhm.
because the Cortez was lightweight and made out of nylon, so the B boys liked it for dancing. But the rest of Nike had no role at all in hip hop in the beginning. They weren't there. The other brands I mentioned dominated because the ball players were also the cats going to the park jams
Right.
and everything, because basketball and park jams took place in some of the same places.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So there was always this space where hip hop culture and the shoes commingled. And they were also chosen to be a part of hip hop because they were anti establishment. So, you know, hard bottom and dress shoes, you know, sure, there was a couple of brands that had their role in the early days of hip hop, Playboys, British Walkers, but sneakers dominated what it is to be into hip hop. There's no question about it. So, you know, we just had so many different brands and styles and things. And, you know, this whole thing now with, you know, I think it died down now, but there were a few years where people were getting mad at kids for wearing Adidas track pants with Jordans.
Yeah.
We did that. We
Yeah.
mixed brands
Mhm.
because the colors of one brand's jackets and pants matched our shoes better than the colors of the brand themselves that made it,
Right.
or the material was better,
Mhm.
or based on the way we we're putting the outfit together, maybe the Adidas jacket does go better with this particular pants from this other sportswear brand, or vice versa. Like, we were curators of things based on that. We knew how things fit. We knew what colors matched colors perfect. We customized shoes. Like, we did all of those things in an effort to be individuals. So when folks get mad, oh, Adidas track pants with Jordans, that's nauseating. Shut up. You
I
know
mean, there was one time, and I think I told the story because I live next to a mall, so I usually like I walk through the mall, and I had on Adidas track pants. I had sweatpants, and then I had
that.
on my Bacons with my that's my like walking shoe. So I put
Mhm.
on. So I'm like walking. I hear somebody go yo yo, and I just kept going because I knew it was a kid who was gonna be like, "Why you wearing Adidas's with Nikes?" Like, and I was just like, like I was just like, it's I'm just walking. Like I'm not. It's not like I'm going to the club or something.
But in older generation, people criticizing that you're not remembering where you came from, because we all did that.
It's all about
That's one of
what
the things
matters.
I do. That's one of the things I do with social studies, is remind people that none of this shit is new. Hip hop did it all. So if you're gonna act brand new with it, you're obviously not remembering what it was like. You know, if you're gonna go that far to like criticize certain things you see without checking to see the backstory behind it, because I mean, it was rampant. Like 5 to 7 years ago, that's all you saw was Adidas Toro track pants with Jordans. That's all you saw. And we were like, and that was before Nike Tech really, you know, grabbed hold. And even now, if you wear Nike Tech suits, you're a scammer or you're up to no good. And Nike Tech suits come with a stereotype.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's all of these things to consider before you open your mouth. And our generation, we were aware of, we knew all of these things. So, if you see a young kid who obviously 10, 15, 20 years younger than you, in some cases 30, and you look at him like, oh man, you got the Adidas with the Jordans? Why would you do that? Like, huh, you forgot everything. You just forgot everything
I
if you're
mean,
gonna criticize. Because that kid is the same kid who was you who said the Adidas pants fit better than the Nike pants and go better with these shoes.
yeah, I don't get it. I mean, people are getting on people for wearing, Nike socks with Adidas shoes, and it's like all this brand loyalty. Like, at what point, where did the brand start paying you for brand loyalty at that point?
Exactly.
Mhm.
We're at that point where even though we buy sneakers, the phrase is sneakers pay us.
Mhm.
That's our existence. Sneakers pays us. So, and we bought enough sneakers over the last couple of decades to have a say so on when they do things good and when they do things bad.
Oh yeah, and
That's been at the strength of where we are with OSD and social studies.
yeah, that's the one thing, and I mean, I've talked to people about it for a while now. Like, I don't understand how some people will shell out money in order to, like, they'll pay the extra amount of money to get a pair early, to review the pair, put it online, and then, like, just to
And they
help,
sell it.
yeah, and just to help the brand sell it.
Hmm?
I don't. I it doesn't make sense in my mind, and I guess maybe I'm just not an elite marketer or something like that, because it if if the brand wants me to help them sell it, then they should be offering me a chance to be like, hey, work with us.
Yep.
And if you're shelling out thousands of dollars each week just to make 500 views, and those views are not paying you, like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. But things are different. This is the era that we're in. You
Yeah.
know, the sneaker industry isn't for me. I'll be the first one to tell you. People like, oh, you've been around it so long, it's been your passion. This ain't my industry. I'm out here trying to get it passed along to other people. We're trying to get this thing into the hands of the next generation responsibly
Mhm.
so that they can continue the work that we're doing and know exactly what it is they're buying and why things are the way they are. That's
Yeah.
really all we're living to do. This sneaker industry is not for us. Nobody's sitting around unless they're at Rockport, Easy Spirit, making a golf shoe or a technical running shoe. There's literally nobody sitting at a company making a shoe for a 50-year-old,
No. I
other than
mean,
those categories I just mentioned.
there's maybe somebody.
Or if you work for Skechers.
Well, I don't know. Snoop Dogg is selling Bored Ape sneakers now. So,
Yeah, yeah.
at what point in, like, your sneaker journey where you're like, I'm a start trying to figure out a way to work within sneakers. Uh,
It just came organically through the talk show. We didn't know what we were doing when we wanted to start the talk show, but we were open to the opportunities because the wild popularity of the talk show, which people said we were stupid to create or crazy to create, opened up this entire world that here we are 16 years later. It all started with our podcast.
mhm. Where did the inspiration for the podcast start?
D's crazy ass.
Just D just being like, we should record this.
Well, D had always believed that there was another level of expression for being into shoes.
Mhm.
And when he was with Soul Collector, because D is one of the founding members of Soul Collector magazine before it became soulcollector.com and what it is today under the Complex banner,
Mhm.
he ended up being out of there and starting OSD after, years of frustration with certain things that were happening while he was with Soul Collector and the way the industry was going. So when he bounced and we met and established OSD, these were things that he already wanted to do that just couldn't get done due to a whole lot of politics and things over at Soul Collector. So
Mhm.
he did it, we did it, and it just took off from there. We were taking it seriously. I was doing running shows every week, passing them out to cast members, and when we had guests on, we were booking guests and prepping guests, and
Mhm.
you know, setting up the logistics of all those kind of things, running a real show.
It's that.
And people had no clue we were running a real show.
I mean, I got to it late. I got to it. I found the Facebook group like I think 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Um, so I didn't get to be part of the the rise of OSD, which is
Well, that's cool.
upsets
Now
me.
you got your podcast, so you need to hit that group and post every chance you get.
I'll be hesitant. I don't know. Like I don't want to just be like, hey guys, and
Nope,
nobody knows
nope,
me.
nope. Jump in there. We got to get things started in there. We got a couple thousand members.
Hmm.
Get things started. I mean, we started everything to build community and give a voice to people that didn't have a voice because back then when you were in the shoes like that, if you're a woman, you were in the sneakers back then, they said you were a lesbian. If you were a guy in the sneakers back then, you may not have been like, a gay male, but something was off with you. These were like the stereotypes and stuff that prevailed in the early 2000s around folks when you said, "Oh, I'm into sneakers. That's all I'm into is sneakers." You know, I love sneakers, and people would be like,
I
you know,
remember that. I remember those days perfectly.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? People, they give you a couple of steps back, like, "Oh, you into
And
shoes?
if
Oh,
it's not a Jordan, especially if it's not a Jordan, and then be like, "What are those?" and you get those weird looks. Like
well, the
I,
early 2000s, it was all you look at all the websites that were out back then, the Shoe Game, Nice Kicks, Sneaker News, all those from back in the early 2000s. That's all they covered were Nike and Jordan. Every now and then they break it up with a post about Adidas,
Mhm.
but it was all Nike and Jordan back then. And we refused to talk about Nike and Jordan on our show when we started it. We started the show in '07, and our original logo is the bottom of an Air Force One because that was the 25th anniversary of Air Force that year. And Nike botched that entire campaign up so badly.
Mhm. I'm
There's still shoes floating around to this day, dead stock pairs of 25th anniversary Air Force Ones that were never sold.
That's, I mean, the real definition of dead stock, not the
Yeah,
not the
the super real definition of dead stock. Absolutely, yes.
that is wild. Because yeah, I'm trying to remember. Was that the laser etched pair?
No,
The
that was they came out with so many pairs of shoes. We're not talking about this. We're talking about the entire 25th anniversary campaign. It was done wrong, and we hated it. And there are a few shoes that came out that were dope, but they put out so many things that just was unnecessary because it was the 25th anniversary of the shoe.
oh
And
this is when they
so,
started doing the. It looks like it's like a hybrid shoe, and it's
well,
got
you're talking about the actual Air Force 25,
yeah.
that one with the strap there. But we're talking about Air Force ones. They put out so many, they botched it, And that was actually the inspiration for the first podcast
Mhm.
was giving a voice to that for people who we knew felt the same way we did.
I mean, it's wild that the Air Force has so much history, and I mean now I don't even know if it's now even considered getting a resurgence, but they're even talking about
It's not getting a resurgence. It's gaining presence on the shelves again, obviously, but it's not getting a resurgence. I wouldn't say that.
they talked about they're re-releasing the UNOs, uh, Cherry Blossom,
Yeah, that
and
was the first shoe I paid $1,000 for,
oh really?
and I only owned it. I only owned it one day
Why?
because I hated it. I got stuck in a moment for a minute where I felt like I had to have that shoe because it was a shoe to have, and I had to quickly readjust myself to get back to who I am. And I sold that shit the next day.
But it's a good looking shoe.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I don't really like pink like that
I get that. I get that. The
at all. I don't like pink at all. You will never see me in pink ever anywhere.
I like pink. I think pink is a cool color when when it's mixed in with other stuff. Like you can put a nice pink fit together,
Well,
but
yeah,
not like Cameron, not Cameron style though.
listen, you pull it off, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? I've just never been into pink. It's just not my color. You know?
Yeah. I one of my favorite posts that you posted is, and I'm looking at them, is the X-Men Air Max ones that you created.
The
Uh,
19 years. Yep.
yeah. The like, well, the inspiration. What is the inspiration behind? Like, were you always in the comics during that, and then you were like, let me just do that together?
Those are my those. That's my favorite superhero group is the Uncanny X-Men, the
Mhm,
original X-Men from the '60s.
mhm,
So like their original colors of their uniforms and everything, I try to do that color scheme on all the shoes I've done. Nightcrawler was my first ones I did for our anniversary that year. Sold 30 to 40 pairs of those. We put out orders and wildly popular. Um, People love that Nightcrawler Air Max 1. And then I was under the assumption at some point Nike would copy me on that color scheme, but they never did for the Air Max. And like even now, that shoe is like the stuff of legend for folks. Like, oh, that Nightcrawler, that's crazy. Like, and then I just carried on the series. But the Nightcrawler wasn't the first one. The first shoe I actually did was an Air Force
mhm,
for Professor X that
mhm.
I did in 2008.
Wow.
And then there were a whole other series of shoes that I never had a chance to actually make. And starting in 2018, I picked up the series and started making them again. So, Nightcrawler's there, Xavier's there, Cyclops is there. I think I have Beast right here. Yeah, Beast is right here. Beast is right here. I do boxes and everything. So these are the. Actually, Beast is home. Beast is home. These aren't Beast. These are, and you're getting a sneak peek right here. These are the
Hey.
16th anniversary pair of OSD's 16th anniversary. We did the Air Max 90 for this one.
Oh wow. Those are clean. Is that I want to say Rogue?
No, these are just general X-Men colors. I didn't give a
Oh,
character to this one. I just wanted to go general overall X-Men. Just again to pay homage to the original uniforms.
hmm. Those are
You know,
sick. Yeah.
so that's my 16th anniversary X-Men shoe. You've seen it here first. It hasn't been seen anywhere actually.
Oh
So
snap.
you've seen it here first.
Exclusive.
But I did Cyclops, I did Beast, Nightcrawler, Charles Xavier, um, these, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, so coming soon will be one of the X Men that nobody ever really thinks about, and that's
Silver Surfer.
Iceman.
Oh,
I
Iceman. I'm looking at him like Silver Surfer. I was like, he
oh,
was his
before Silver Surfer is Iceman.
Iceman. Yeah.
Iceman's an original X Men,
Yes.
so those will be next.
That's dope. I mean, I can't. That's got to have an icy soul in the bottom. That's all I know.
Well, maybe, maybe not, because the theme for all of our shoes have always been gum bottoms. We do gum on every theme sneaker we do.
Yeah.
That's our
The
thing, gum bottoms.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that because I recently made a video. Because my friend said that on a video he said he doesn't like gum bottoms, and to me, I think gum bottoms are like one of the most iconic bottoms in my eyes. Like it,
Mhm.
I don't. There was like, I mean, I don't know if you know about like there was a time where people were like, "You're not a sneakerhead unless you're," and then they gave you rules, and you had to have like a
Mhm.
pair of Air Max 90 infrareds. You had to have like
Yeah, I heard all them stupid
all
rules.
all
Yeah.
those rules, but one of them was like you have to love gum bottoms, and I so out of that like out of like growing up into sneaker culture like that, like you was just like my love for gum bottoms always started with like a pair of like Air Max ones. Like the Air Max One gum bottom was like iconic to me, so I
Mhm.
always loved gum bottoms. But I don't know, were you like did that does that fall in line with your love for gum bottoms?
No, my love for gum bottoms started from when I started doing like the years of Nike ID and because I go back to the early days in the beginning with Nike ID before it became Nike by You. So um, when you used to go to 255 Elizabeth Street in Manhattan to go get your special pairs done, it was an appointment. It was an experience. You sat down, you got a lot of options and things. And like for me, gum bottom always set off whatever I was making,
Mhm.
you know, and it always ends up like really elevating the sole of the shoe to me on top of what you did with the upper and the midsole. So for me, they've always worked and my head has always been geared towards when I do something, when I cook something up, a gum bottom is going to have to be there. Even if not fully, it's going to partially have to be there.
The shoot, the 21 Mercer, man. I don't know, like I wasn't able to make a my own pair there, but like I've heard nothing but legendary like stories
Oh
from.
yeah, the bespoke room there. I mean, I've never paid $720 for an Air Force or anything close to that for that, and I refuse to. But I do know a lot of people who did spend a lot of money there before they shut that down. But I've always been one of those people who I can take what you put in front of me and I can tell a good color and material story on shoes. So I didn't need the exotic skins and extra things for the lining. And if I wanted all of that, then I would go get all those other pieces later and then add that to the shoe. Get wax cotton laces, get custom lace dubrays, do a custom box and stuff myself. I didn't need Mercer to do that for me because I knew that they were just straight 720 plus tax. You're almost at $1,000,
Yeah.
and a lot of people going there and doing Air Forces. I have never seen an Air Force, even the Uenos when I bought them. I've literally never personally seen an Air Force that is worth $1,000.
Mhm. Especially because like DJ Clark Kent says you only get like two wears out of them, so yeah,
Well, he meant the white on whites,
yeah.
which to him is the perfect sneaker. But a white on white Air Force is now $110 in the store.
Mhm. They
It
used to
was
be like
originally
60.
$65. Now it's 110. It's double almost.
It's the price goes up, man. The price keeps going up. Like even now with more recent Jordan releases, like they're creeping everybody towards to 300, close to 300, almost like I think what the it was like those Bordeaux fives that came out. They were like
225.
225, and then as it keeps going up, like we're just getting closer. I mean, the most I've ever paid for a pair of sneakers was 250 because I don't really pay for resale.
Mm.
Like and then those are just off white fives. And so imagine if off white fives came out in the next 2 years, it'd probably be like 350. You know, it's
Or whatever else they see online that people are willing to pay by looking at StockX and Go.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, inflation and the way that the sneakers keeps rising, we're definitely gonna be out of money even faster.
Not me. I'm not
Well,
into that many sneakers anymore like
I
that.
was gonna ask you, like, like, were you like, did you at one point did you like switch off of just what brands are giving us, and then you're like, you know what, I'm gonna just do it what I want to do, and are you still copping
I've
currently?
always done what I want to do. And then I have three kids, so I'm always still buying. Well, two of them are grown now, so I ain't buying them shit no more unless they ask me for a birthday present or something. But like, I've had 20 years of raising children, 20 plus years of raising children who depended on me to buy their shoes.
Mhm.
So every now and then I see stuff for me that, as an exhibition curator, I feel like I have to have be a vintage or brand new. But if it tells a story that I think I need to tell as a curator, I'll buy it. But I'm not walking out of my house in the morning after seeing some shoe on the internet going, I must have those.
Mhm.
Those days are long gone.
Man, Sean, I do ask one last question before we jump up out of here, and that
Yep.
question is: I want you to think back to that time before you're about to open the. Let's go with the Puma baskets. Before you're about to
Yeah.
open the Puma baskets, right?
Yep.
Uh, Now you're this age, behind yourself. What would you tell your younger self as they open that box?
Great question. I've never been asked that. Um, I can tell you what I did tell myself.
Mhm.
I told myself, today is your birthday and you are going to be fresh.
That's
Today
fact.
is the day. Put these joints on and hit the street.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah,
what I told myself that day when I put them shits on at 13,
yeah.
and stepped out on the block in East Flatbush.
Mhm.
But, it's hard for me to revisit who I was back then because I actually had it pretty good.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like my sneaker journey, I don't regret any of it. I like how everything played out. Me making the deal with my mom, me getting the ambition and desire to work at 14 and 15 and to buying shoes with my own money. I don't have anything to tell my younger self. I really don't, because like that younger self got me here.
Yeah. Love that. I love that, man. Thank you so much for jumping on. Can you because you didn't let anybody know where to get you, and so plug your
All
stuff.
right. So the best places to get me and to get in touch with us with what we're doing on the academy is on LinkedIn. We have a group on LinkedIn. It's Social Studies Community Academy, and social is SOLECIAL. So Social Studies Community Academy on LinkedIn. And then there's me on LinkedIn, Sean Williams. And then on Instagram, we also have the Academy's Instagram, which is socialstudies.ssca. So that's socialstudies.ssca. And then my personal Instagram, which is OSD underscore paper chaser, which chaser spelled different, CHASR. Damn you, Nike. Couldn't let me spell out the whole damn thing back then. That's another story for part two. Um, but yeah, those are the best ways to reach me. LinkedIn, with our group, my personal connection, and on Instagram on both of our Instagram handles.
No, yeah, yo, thank you so much for jumping on, Sean. And for everybody out there, you know what we say each week: wear your kicks.
Yep.
Peace.
Hashtag wear every pair is what we put up.
Oh,
Wear
wear
every
every
pair.
pair. Wear every pair.